I think that's what the power of the stage production has been, is making people feel so much less alone.
I mean, I still cry watching it, you know. So sometimes some things just punch in the gut, you know.
And I hope that what people take away from it when they see it is that you are not alone.
I'm so grateful to be a part of this amazing, amazing film, Dear Evan Hansen. It's a musical that I love so much, that my kids love so much.
I love the story of Dear Evan Hansen because it addresses themes that are really pertinent to, I think, everybody in a way that's really nuanced. Those themes being feelings of isolation, of feeling like you don't know where you belong, of dealing with the awkwardness of discovering self and the anxiety of interfacing and engaging with other humans in the world. And it does it in a way that's really complicated and beautifully layered and ultimately really hopeful and inspiring. And
it feels, it's just such a real thing. What Evan goes through, what Connor goes through, what Jared goes through, what Alana goes through, what the parents go through. I mean, everyone has their own struggle, and that's just so true to life.
It's one of those stories that's for really kind of everybody, whether you're a father or a mother or a sister or a friend, or if you are dealing with anxiety, or if you're feeling alone or isolated, or if you're grieving, you know. I think there's a character in this story for everybody.
It's a very multi-generational story, obviously, with like the high school kids, with Connor and Evan's parents, and I just think it's a very healing experience.
That's the other thing that's so amazing about this musical, is that it's so much about these young people, but it really represents the parents' point of view as well, and it's very, very generous toward them.
Evan finds himself in this very tricky situation where a note that he's written to himself as an assignment from a therapist is misconstrued as a suicide letter written by a fellow classmate of his that commits suicide. And so the parents of the student Connor, who has passed away, assume that Evan was their son's best friend based on this letter. And while Evan at first tries to sort of deny it and be truthful, he immediately is pulled in by this family of the Murphys, who are so in need of comfort and connection, having lost their son, as is Evan. And so this family and Evan kind of find exactly what they're looking for in each other. And through this lie, and through sort of allowing this lie to continue, Evan finally kind of grows into who he is and becomes more open and more emotionally connective and feels seen in a way he never has before.
So much of her need and her desire to see her son through Evan's eyes is what fuels Evan's whole lie. So there has to be just so much need and grief coming from her. And you really do just dive in at the beginning, and you meet her inside of sort of the worst time in her life.
Zoe is actually a woman that I aspire to be. She's the kind of girl that sort of really doesn't care what anybody thinks.
Ben has been playing this character for a long time and playing it so beautifully. And I think the reason why that is because he carries such a tenderness in the character, and he has such a you could tell he has such an empathy and understanding of the character.
I think something that's really important for the entirety of the film is really understanding Evan's perspective and where Evan's coming from so that you never sort of turn against him. And I think a huge part of that is getting to feel the joy that Evan does feel within this lie and allowing us to feel his triumphs when they do come, however messy and sort of complicated they may be. I think in order to have that arrival of emotion and catharsis at the end, you really need to feel that uplift and that joy that Evan feels before it all comes crashing down.
That makes it so easy to emotionally connect to him. Like, even just seeing him like walk from one point to another as this character, you just like want to go up to him and hug him, like tell him it's gonna be okay. And I think because he's coming from a place of really understanding this character's pain and vulnerabilities and sweetness and softness, it just makes him so damn lovable.
I think my being a mother and being a mother to teenagers too, I think that experience is definitely gives you much more to work with. I think you're always, it's like your kids are little for so long, and then adolescence is really short, and they change so much. And there's a lot that you're going through as a parent where you're trying to gauge like what they need from you, how much help that they need, and how much independence do they want. And they're trying to differentiate themselves at a time when you're trying to kind of guide them toward it. So it's very challenging. And I think that this piece really speaks to that.
But I think I pulled a lot from, my high school life and those anxieties and those pressures you feel as a teenager, figuring out who you are and what your place is in the world, and realizing later now, you're still figuring out who you are, and I don't know if that'll ever change.
She's this overachiever who's constantly moving, constantly pushing herself harder and harder and harder. And oftentimes, the reason why she's pushing so hard or refusing to slow down is because she's afraid of what will happen when she stops and everything catches up to her. Or she's afraid that if she's not beyond perfect, not just perfect, but beyond perfect, then she won't be loved or accepted or respected by the people around her.
But I think that that's really important for those two characters, Cynthia and Zoe. They are having a lot of conflict in the film, but again, at the end of the day, there is still so much love there.
So it was challenging in that way, but also really beautiful to get to play somebody who believed so deeply in her son's potential.
Doing scenes with Amy Adams is not something you get to do very often. She is so, I can't even put it into words how much I love her. She came to me with just open arms, and she was immediately embracing everything that I am, and always wanting to get to know me, and just, she felt like my mom immediately. She felt like so caring and giving and nurturing, and it was hard to get a little angry at her in these scenes sometimes because on set we were just getting along so well.
From a creative standpoint, it was just an incredible joy to work with her and to feel so grounded by how authentic she is. She is like relentlessly real and authentic in her performance, and in a really effortless way that I try to learn from. And she was an incredible scene partner in trying to demodulate some of it from the stage to the screen. Many times all I had to do was match Caitlin's texture and just be present with her, and she helped to achieve so much of that just from her performance. On top of which, she's going to reveal to many people who don't know how beautiful of a voice she has and how musical she is and how extraordinary her singing and live singing are, which I think I'm just incredibly excited for people to see because she's just brilliant.
The experience for me has been one full of, moments within the performance of joy, of deep sorrow, exploring the emotions of loss and guilt and shame and despair, but also trying to find the humanity of a rekindled hope. And although the movie has a lot to do with loss and death, it's really a movie about life and how to live and the importance of that.
With cinema, you get to have close-ups. You get to direct the eye, and you get to really carve out moments for the characters. I'd seen the show many times. Broadway, I saw it in Los Angeles, and depending on where you were looking, let's say during a moment like You Will Be Found, if you look stage left, you're not seeing Larry Murphy having a breakdown. If you look stage right, you're not seeing Zoe over here. So Michael Greif did an amazing job of staging it, but there are all these moments that I got to carve out visually to give every character his or her moment. It was very exciting to do.
Shooting a musical is really different than other things because you have to sing and you have to dance. And if you're a singer and if you're a dancer, great. If you're me, not so great. The nerves are intense. The training has been rigorous. The injuries have been real. It's a whole other skill set that I'm thrilled to be able to explore, but man, is it tough. And I have so much respect for everyone on this movie and anywhere else who could act, sing, and dance at the same time. What?
Pasek and Paul are geniuses, right? I mean, I think that's what is interesting about their music, because it is so emotional and it's so deep and yet really, really funny and enjoyable. I mean, I was saying to Ben Platt the other day, it's interesting because his journey as an actor is one that's very, very intense and really emotional and really tough. I said, but we watch you. I said, we in the audience watch you, and we're kind of buoyed by this experience, this beautiful musical experience, because it also manages to be kind of light and entertaining and life-affirming, So I don't know how they managed to do that quite, and to have accomplished so much at such a young age. But they really do. It's a very, very, very special piece.
Look, I've never seen them write together. I don't know the magic of the collaboration. They are a great team. They are, it's funny to think. I remember, I think I said to Benjamin, it's like you think Kanter and Ebb or Rodgers and Hammerstein. Like you think about the classic teams, and there hasn't been a classic team in a long time. And to me, Pasek and Paul, that's the classic team now, and that they write such great songs so young. Going back, La La Land, the lyrics for La La Land, that's the first I heard of them. But then we all know The Greatest Showman, and we all Dear Evan Hansen. It's like they're kind of that good, and they're blessed guys. I also think that it helps them, if what I understand of them anyway, is that they went to the University of Michigan as performers, and that they came out as writers. A lot of really great writers wanted to become actors, and all of that exposure and knowing what people go through, the human condition, I think finds its way into their songs. They're two of the best songwriters easily of this generation, and in my opinion, they're one of the great songwriting teams in Broadway history, and they're not even 40.
Requiem, it's a really interesting song because it follows three different characters all having their own experience with where they are inside of Connor's death, and kind of how they're processing their grief, and they're all three doing it differently. And it's when Cynthia's part of Requiem was an interesting challenge, because it could seem very sad, but when she says, "I will sing no requiem," it isn't a sort of anger at him. It's because she believes that he was what she believed him to be. Evan has told her this story, and now she can grieve differently, because he wasn't alone, and he wasn't a loner, and he had friends, and he had hopes and wishes and dreams and all of these things. And so she's really tied her grief into Evan.
Waving Through a Window is Evan's kind of cri de coeur. It's his I want song, which we call it in musical theater. It gives you a window immediately into who he is and what it is he's looking for and what he's missing. which is that he feels completely misunderstood and unseen and invisible, and is warring with himself because on the one hand, he feels very comfortable in this kind of invisible, hidden place because he isn't putting himself up for judgment or for ridicule or anything. He's kind of hiding away safely, but at the same time, he's so eager and so hungry to feel seen and heard and looked at for real and understood. And I think that kind of internal war mixed with this incredible pop song that Pascal and Paul have written makes Wave Me Through a Window this like anthem for people who feel unseen and who feel at once comfortable in feeling unseen, but entirely desiring to be looked at.
You Will Be Found is about hope. You Will Be Found is about somebody feeling isolated, not seen, discarded, irrelevant. Finally understanding that there's not only one person, there's quite literally an army of people who care about you and who are there to support you. And so I think ultimately You Will Be Found is that hopeful anthem that this whole show floats on.
When we got Amandla Stenberg to play Alana, we were all so excited, and she's a wonderful singer and she's a songwriter, and so Benj and Justin wanted to develop something with her that would be part of not only Alana's journey, but something very personal for Amandla to sing. And that became The Anonymous Ones. Then we also knew that on the stage, Connor Murphy plays kind of Evan's alter ego on stage, where Evan is basically talking to himself through talking to Connor. We knew that wouldn't work in the film so well because it would feel like a ghost. It was too literal. So we wanted to give Connor a moment above and beyond to kind of replace that moment on stage. And that's when the idea of this new song came about that would reveal Connor's talents as a songwriter and as a singer. That became one of my favorite parts of the movie. The reveal of Connor, the fact that you're listening to the song, you think it's a montage song, and then when you reveal him, I found it pretty breathtaking to do.
What I really appreciated about Stephen Chbosky was his openness and kind of ability to connect with me and ask me what I needed from an emotional standpoint and from a performance standpoint. I think he had a real awareness that this was a character that had become really beloved and that I had a really deep understanding of.
And it really is about, what it means to be a young person today. I think in a modern world, at a time when you don't always know who you are and what your relationships are all about. Anyway, I think it's incredibly meaningful and enjoyable and emotional and beautiful. So I'm grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah, social media definitely plays a really integral role in the story. It's almost like another character. And I feel like that's reflective of how life is, how the world is right now. I feel like there's really no way to address the teenage experience and, well, not even just teenage experience, but there's no way to address the themes of loneliness or self-worth or sense of self or identity without factoring in social media and the way it inflates and deflates us. And I think the story does it in a way that's very truthful and real.
But I think what struck a nerve with so many people is that it really allowed people to feel seen and feel heard for the first time. It's really, really powerful, and that's one of the many reasons why I wanted to be a part of it.
I don't think before Evan Hansen a lot of people were talking about young people and the way they feel in that way, and that's sort of like, hey, let's get real about this kind of way.
Dear Evan Hansen does a great job at tackling social media because it shows both the power of it and also the insidious underbelly. There's this beautiful potential for it to affect people and reach people through the screen, but it's also full of lies and disinformation and trolls and scary things, and it does a great job of tackling both sides of that coin.
I think that's what the power of the stage production has been, is making people feel so much less alone, making them know that they're not weird or something's not wrong with them if they have those feelings, but that's something that's really common and it's normal, and oftentimes people are not able to see outside of those feelings while they're inside of them, and you kind of just need one person to reach out to you, to tell you that it's going to be okay, to reflect your experience back at you in order to kind of like get out of that headspace.
Everyone knows someone or is that someone who struggles with mental health and depression and anxiety and takes medication and goes to therapy and struggles with who they are and how they fit into the world. I certainly have and still do. I'm talking to my therapist like pretty soon. And it's just so special to be a part of a movie that kind of tackles it head on with joy, but also with sadness, with gravity, and with authenticity.
I think Dear Evan Hansen affects people because it understands the way that we think we're unique in feeling alone and doesn't want to ever shy away from that or ask people to even be alone in watching it. It asks you to just fully be there and with Evan, with other people in communion, and just sort of understand that like you aren't unique in that way. You don't have to feel like in a time where especially we feel more alone than ever, like that you're the only one going through that, which is such like a generous thing, I think, is letting people have that like relief of knowing it's not just you. It's hard, and that's the show to me, and I still cry watching it, you know. So sometimes some things just punch in the gut, you know.
And I hope that what people take away from it when they see it is that you are not alone.